Zebb Quinn was just 18 years old when he vanished without a trace on the night of January 2, 2000. What started as a routine evening out with a friend quickly spiraled into one of North Carolina's most perplexing missing persons cases. One filled with strange twists, cryptic clues, and unanswered questions that would haunt investigators for over 2 decades. His case is one that leaves more questions than answers. Why did Zebb, a responsible and well-liked young man, abruptly cut his evening short after receiving a mysterious page? Who was behind the bizarre items found in his abandoned car weeks later? And most importantly, what really happened to Zebb Quinn? For years, his family and friends searched for the truth, but every lead seemed to deepen the mystery rather than solve it. Despite the involvement of law enforcement, the media, and the relentless efforts of his loved ones, no definitive answers emerged. That is, until years later, when a shocking revelation shattered the silence. This is the story of Zebb Quinn, a young man with a bright future whose disappearance became one of the most haunting and chilling true crime cases in recent history. It was a quiet Sunday evening on January 2, 2000, in Asheville, North Carolina. The holiday season had just ended, and life was returning to normal. For 18-year-old Zebb Quinn, the night started out like any other. He finished his shift at the local Walmart, where he worked in the electronics department, and made plans to meet up with a friend after work. That friend was Robert Jason Owens, a co-worker and acquaintance, who had agreed to accompany Zebb to look at a used car he was interested in purchasing. At approximately 9 p.m., Zebb and Owens left Walmart together in separate vehicles, driving toward the small town of Leicester. The plan was simple. Zebb was looking to buy a Mitsubishi Eclipse and wanted Owens' opinion before making the purchase. However, just minutes into their drive, something strange happened. As they traveled along Hendersonville Road, Zebb suddenly flashed his headlights, signaling Owens to pull over. When they stopped, Zebb appeared frantic and visibly distressed. He told Owens he had received a message from someone trying to contact him. Without offering any details, Zebb told Owens he needed to return the call immediately and asked if he could meet back up with him shortly. Owens later told investigators that he saw Zebb drive off erratically, heading back toward Asheville. That was the last confirmed sighting of Zebb Quinn. As the minutes turned into hours, Zebb never returned. Owens, who claimed he waited for him for some time, eventually gave up and went home. But Zebb never made it back home that night. His family quickly grew concerned when he failed to return calls or show up for work the next day, something completely out of character for him. When Zebb's mother, Denise Vlahakis, reported him missing, police initially considered the possibility that he had simply taken off on his own. After all, teenagers sometimes run away, and with no immediate signs of foul play, investigators weren't alarmed. But as days passed, it became clear that Zebb's disappearance was not voluntary. There were no transactions on his bank accounts, no signs he had packed for a trip, and no contact with any of his family or close friends. Something had happened to him that night, and whatever it wasn't planned. Then, a strange twist emerged. Just one day after Zebb went missing, his employer at Walmart received a phone call. The voice on the other end claimed to be Zebb, calling in sick. But the voice wasn't his. Instead, it was later traced back to none other than Robert Jason Owens. When questioned, Owens admitted to making the call, saying he did it as a favor to Zebb's family. He claimed Zebb had asked him to make the call because he wasn't feeling well. But the excuse made little sense. Zebb hadn't even made it home that night. Why would he call out of work through someone else instead of doing it himself? As investigators probed further, they realized this was just the beginning of an increasingly bizarre and disturbing mystery. one that would only grow darker with each new revelation. As days turned into weeks with no sign of Zebb Quinn, the Asheville Police Department ramped up their investigation. Friends, family, and co-workers were questioned, and search efforts expanded. But the case was already proving to be anything but straightforward. The first major red flag was Robert Jason Owens, the last person known to have seen Zebb that night. His story about Zebb receiving a page and suddenly driving off seemed plausible at first, but investigators quickly uncovered inconsistencies in his account. When Owens was brought in for questioning, he confirmed that he and Zebb had planned to look at a car together that night, but he stuck to his story. Zebb had left abruptly after getting a page, and he never saw him again. However, when police asked Owens to recall what he did after that, his explanation raised even more suspicions. Owens claimed that after Zebb left in a hurry, he waited around for a while before deciding to go home. But on his way, he said he got into a car accident, one that conveniently left him with a head injury and broken ribs. Sure enough, hospital records confirmed that Owens had been treated for injuries that night. But there was something strange about the accident. There was no official police report, no known witnesses, and the damage to Owens' vehicle, a Ford pickup truck, didn't match the extent of the injuries he claimed to have sustained. Investigators pressed Owens further, but he insisted he had nothing to do with Zebb's disappearance. His vague explanations and suspicious behavior made him an obvious person of interest, but without direct evidence linking him to a crime, police had little to go on. As investigators worked to verify Owens' story, they turned their attention to the mysterious page that Zebb allegedly received, the one that made him abandon his plans that night. Police obtained Zebb's phone records and discovered that the page had come from his own aunt's house. The revelation led detectives to question Misty Taylor, a woman Zebb had been romantically interested in at the time. Misty had been dating another man, Wesley Smith, and her relationship with Zebb had reportedly caused tension. Some believed Smith was jealous of Zebb, and investigators couldn't ignore the possibility that the page had been a trap to lure him somewhere. But when questioned, Misty and her family denied having anything to do with the page or Zebb's disappearance. They insisted they had no idea how their number ended up on Zebb's pager that night. With no solid evidence linking Misty or her boyfriend to the case, the investigation hit a dead end. Meanwhile, Zebb's family was left in agony, searching for answers that never seemed to come. Then, 2 weeks after Zebb vanished, a shocking discovery would only deepen the mystery. His car, a light blue Mazda Protégé, was found abandoned in the parking lot of the Little Pig's Barbecue restaurant, just a few miles from where he was last seen. And inside that car, police found some of the strangest clues yet. 2 weeks after Zebb Quinn's disappearance, a major development emerged. His 1990 light blue Mazda Protégé was found abandoned in the parking lot of Little Pig's Barbecue, a restaurant on McDowell Street in Asheville. The car had seemingly been left there in plain sight, but its contents raised more questions than answers. When police arrived at the scene, the first thing they noticed was that the driver's seat had been pushed far back, much farther than Zebb, who was 5'9", would have needed it. This suggested that someone taller had been behind the wheel when the car was last driven. But it was what was found inside the car that truly unsettled investigators. Lying on the dashboard was a set of hotel key cards, but there was no indication of which hotel they belonged to. In the back seat, officers found a jacket that didn't belong to Zebb, adding another layer of mystery. Most disturbingly, inside the car was a live puppy, a tiny young Labrador mix, frightened but unharmed. It was an odd discovery, and no one in Zebb's family recognized the dog. There was no logical reason for it to be in his vehicle. Had someone left it there deliberately? If so, why? And then, There was the final chilling detail. Someone had drawn a pair of lips in bright red lipstick on the rear windshield of the car. The meaning behind this bizarre marking was unknown. Was it a message, a taunt, or something more sinister? While investigators processed the scene, it was clear that the car had been deliberately placed there. The area where it was found was highly visible, suggesting that whoever left it behind wanted it to be discovered. One detail made the case even stranger. When Zebb's mother, Denise, was informed about the car's discovery, she immediately noticed something was missing. The headlights had been intentionally damaged, and the driver's seatbelt was buckled in an unusual manner. To her, these were clear signs that someone had tried to stage the scene, possibly to throw investigators off. Despite the peculiar clues, police could not determine who had driven the car there or when it had been abandoned. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses provided no solid leads. The car itself was processed for forensic evidence, but nothing conclusive was found. As authorities worked to make sense of the vehicle's odd contents, their attention once again turned to the last person who had seen Zebb alive, Robert Jason Owens. Investigators pressed Owens further, hoping he could provide insight into the car's whereabouts. But instead of clarifying the mystery, his behavior only grew more suspicious. That's when police uncovered yet another strange twist in the case, one that involved a phone call, deception, and a desperate attempt to mislead investigators. As the investigation deepened, police turned their focus back to Robert Jason Owens, the last person known to have seen Zebb Quinn alive. From the beginning, Owens's account of that night had been inconsistent and suspicious. But when detectives dug deeper, they uncovered something even more alarming: a deliberate attempt to mislead them. Shortly after Zebb's disappearance, an employee at Walmart, where both Owens and Zebb worked, received an unexpected phone call. The caller claimed to be Zebb and stated that he would not be coming into work. But something was off. The voice on the other end didn't sound like Zebb at all. An investigation quickly revealed that the call had actually been made by Robert Owens. When confronted, Owens admitted to making the call but gave a bizarre explanation. He claimed that Zebb had contacted him after disappearing and asked him to call in sick on his behalf. This made little sense. Zebb had vanished under mysterious circumstances. Why would he suddenly reach out just to have someone else make an excuse for him? If anything, the phone call only deepened suspicions that Owens knew far more about Zebb's fate than he was letting on. There was another troubling piece of the puzzle. Owens had sustained injuries the same night Zebb went missing. When questioned by police, Owens claimed he had gotten into a car accident on his way home after Zebb supposedly left him behind. He told investigators that he had crashed his Ford pickup truck, suffering broken ribs and a head injury. However, there was no official report of an accident, no 911 call, and no evidence of a collision that matched the severity of his injuries. Even more suspiciously, police noticed that Owens's truck had been recently cleaned and repaired, erasing any physical proof of the supposed accident. The more investigators looked into Owens' story, the less it held up. But without concrete evidence tying him to a crime, police couldn't charge him with anything. The next clue in the case was the mysterious page that had supposedly caused Zebb to abruptly leave his meeting with Owens that night. Phone records showed that the page came from the home of Zebb's aunt, Ina Ustich. However, when police questioned her, she denied sending it. Even more bizarrely, she said that on the night of Zebb's disappearance, her house had been broken into and nothing was taken, except for her pager and some phone records. This raised an unsettling question. Had someone intentionally sent a message to Zebb from her house to lure him away? Investigators also looked into Misty Taylor, a woman Zebb had been romantically interested in. Misty was in a relationship with Wesley Smith. a man known to have a jealous and possessive streak. According to those close to Zebb, he had been trying to pursue Misty despite her relationship with Smith. This had led to tension between the two men, and some suspected that Smith may have had a motive to harm Zebb. However, when police questioned both Misty and Smith, they denied any involvement in Zebb's disappearance. There was no concrete evidence linking them to the case, but their connection to Zebb, combined with the mysterious page, continued to raise suspicions. Despite Owen's inconsistencies and the troubling circumstances surrounding Zebb's disappearance, police found themselves stuck. There was no body, no crime scene, and no physical evidence linking anyone to a crime. Leads slowly dried up, and as the months passed, Zebb's case began to grow cold. His family continued to push for answers, but with no clear suspect and no new developments, the investigation stalled. For years, the case remained at a standstill, until over a decade later, when a shocking turn of events reignited interest in Zebb Quinn's disappearance. And once again, all eyes turned to Robert Jason Owens. For years, the case of Zebb Quinn remained cold. His family never stopped searching for answers, but with no physical evidence, no body, and no suspect formally charged, it seemed as though his disappearance would remain an unsolved mystery. Then, more than 16 years later, in 2015, the investigation took an unexpected turn, one that would finally provide a glimpse into what may have happened to Zebb. And once again, the name at the center of it all was Robert Jason Owens. On March 15, 2015, Buncombe County Sheriff's deputies responded to a gruesome crime scene at the home of Christy Codd and her husband, Joseph J.T. Codd, in Leicester, North Carolina. Christy Codd was a well-known local chef and had even competed on the TV show Food Network Star. She and her husband were expecting a baby when they suddenly went missing. As police investigated, they quickly discovered that Robert Jason Owens, Zebb Quinn's longtime person of interest, was the last person to have been in contact with the couple. Owens had been hired to do construction work on their home, and neighbors recalled seeing him on the property around the time they disappeared. When officers searched Owens' home and property, they made a horrifying discovery. Evidence showed that Owens had killed both Christy and J.T. Codd, as well as their unborn child. He then attempted to dispose of their remains by burning them in a wood stove. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Owens confessed to the murders. He was arrested and later pleaded guilty to multiple counts, including 3 counts of second-degree murder and attempting to destroy human remains. It was a shocking revelation. The man who had always been the most suspicious figure in Zebb Quinn's case was now a convicted killer. And, with this confession, detectives saw an opportunity. If Owens was capable of murder, had he also been responsible for Zebb Quinn's disappearance all those years ago? Following Owens' conviction for the Codd murders, police reopened Zebb Quinn's case with renewed focus. In July 2015, a search warrant was executed on Owens' property, the same land where he had burned the bodies of the Codds. This time, forensic teams dug deep, searching for any trace of Zebb Quinn. Then, investigators found something significant buried on Owens' property: fabric, leather materials, and unknown hard fragments that appeared to be human remains. Though they did not immediately confirm it was Zebb, the discovery strongly suggested that Owens had been hiding evidence for years. The break in the case finally led to a long-awaited development. On July 10, 2017, Robert Jason Owens was officially charged with Zebb Quinn's murder. But even with this arrest, Owens remained silent. He did not reveal what had truly happened to Zebb that night, nor did he provide details about where Zebb's remains could be found. Instead, he took a plea deal in 2022, agreeing to plead guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for avoiding a trial. However, because no body had ever been recovered, The full truth of what happened to Zebb Quinn that night remains a mystery. Owens claimed that Zebb had died as part of a tragic accident, but authorities and Zebb's family believe there's much more to the story. With his guilty plea, Owens was sentenced to 12 to 15 years in prison for Zebb Quinn's murder. Yet for many, this sentence felt like an injustice. A man had been missing for over 2 decades, and the person responsible would serve barely over a decade in prison. To this day, Zebb Quinn's remains have never been found. And with Owens behind bars, still refusing to talk, it's possible that the full truth of Zebb's fate may never be known. Even with Robert Jason Owens' guilty plea, the mystery surrounding Zebb Quinn's disappearance is far from solved. Theories about what happened that night have circulated for years, but the truth remains elusive. Despite Owens admitting to playing a role in Zebb's death, many believe that the full story has never been told. The circumstances surrounding Zebb's disappearance, the strange page, Owens' inconsistent statements, the bizarre contents of Zebb's abandoned car, and the years of secrecy suggest that Owens was not acting alone. So, what really happened to Zebb Quinn? One of the most widely accepted theories is that Zebb was lured into a trap that night. The mysterious page he received before abruptly leaving Robert Owens was traced back to his aunt's home. Yet she denied ever sending it. Additionally, her home had been broken into, with phone records and a pager missing. This strongly suggests that someone with access to her house, or someone who knew her, was involved. At the time, Zebb had been romantically interested in Misty Taylor, who was already in a relationship with Wesley Smith. Investigators considered the possibility that Smith, angry over Zebb's involvement with Misty, orchestrated an attack on him. Some suspect that Owens was enlisted to help lure Zebb to a remote location, where he was confronted by Smith and possibly others. The theory suggests that the confrontation may have escalated, resulting in Zebb's death, and Owens was left to cover it up. While no physical evidence links Smith or Misty to the crime, the jealousy motive has kept them in the realm of suspicion for years. Another possibility is that Robert Jason Owens acted alone, and that his actions on the night of January 2, 2000, were part of a calculated, premeditated plan. Owens' suspicious behavior after Zebb's disappearance, including the fake phone call to Walmart, his unexplained injuries, and the staged car scene, strongly indicate he knew more than he admitted. His injuries, broken ribs and a head wound, did not match his claims of a simple car accident. Some believe he may have sustained those injuries while struggling with Zebb. Additionally, Owens had been convicted of murdering another couple years later, showing he was fully capable of committing such a crime. Could Zebb have simply been his first victim? If Owens acted alone, the motive remains unclear. Did an argument between the two turn deadly, or was there something more sinister at play? One of the most bizarre elements of the case was Zebb's abandoned car. The live puppy left inside, the red lips drawn on the windshield, the headlights intentionally damaged, the seat pushed back, as if someone taller had driven it. None of these elements make sense in isolation, but together they suggest a staged scene meant to send a message. Some theorists believe the red lipstick lips could have been a taunt, possibly directed at Misty Taylor, a way for whoever abandoned the car to suggest that Zebb's disappearance was somehow related to his feelings for her. But who staged the scene, and why? Was it Owens trying to mislead police? Or was it someone else trying to make a statement? Perhaps the biggest unanswered question is, where is Zebb Quinn's body? In 2015, when investigators searched Robert Owens' property, they found leather and fabric material, along with hard fragments believed to be human remains. However, they never officially confirmed these remains were Zebb's. Given Owens' brutal methods of disposing of bodies in later crimes, burning remains in a wood stove, Some believe he used a similar method to dispose of Zebb. If true, it may be the reason why his body has never been recovered. Others believe Zebb's body may have been buried somewhere remote, possibly with help from someone else. Owens, to this day, has never revealed the location of Zebb's remains, and it's likely he never will. For over 2 decades, the Quinn family has lived with unanswered questions and unresolved grief. Zebb's mother, Denise Vlahakis, fought tirelessly for the truth, never giving up hope that one day she would know what really happened to her son. Though Robert Owens' guilty plea in 2022 provided some closure, it was far from the full justice she had been seeking. Even today, the pain lingers. For the Asheville community, Zebb's case remains one of the most haunting and unsettling disappearances in North Carolina history. The mystery, the unanswered questions, and the bizarre circumstances make it a case that people still talk about, even more than 20 years later. With Owens behind bars, the legal chapter of Zebb Quinn's case is closed. But for those who knew and loved him, the real story is still missing. The biggest question, what truly happened to Zebb that night, may never be answered. And if you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime stories that need to be heard.